LinkedIn Echo Chamber. This is ML's like Team Spirit. We're back with Michelle Wong. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for joining us. It's almost like I was with you just a moment ago. Thanks for joining us again. Michelle, last time you took us through what you've been doing, long career, econometrics, digital advertising, and you finished up by saying that you were at Farfetch, which is a business I wanted to talk about and some of the data science things that happen there. But it's a brand that perhaps everyone hasn't heard of. So,
Mm.
this segment, we're going to get into the world of recommendation engines and recommendation algorithms. But we should probably start by describing what the hell is Farfetch? Like, what is this website? So if you could start there, please.
Sure. Yeah, so Farfetch is an e-commerce company focused on like luxury products, so like luxury clothing, handbags, shoes, etc. So it operates as a digital marketplace. So we've got like brands, boutiques, and department stores who sell their products on the site. So it's a bit like operates a little bit like Amazon in that sense.
Okay.
Make it
And
easy to understand.
yeah, so customers are coming on here all the time. They look at you've got what kind of here's a good number. See if you remember it. How many products? I know it's a marketplace, so it's like
I don't
infinite.
know.
What
It's
kind
like
of big number have you got for me?
millions,
How
I
many
guess.
products are there?
I can't remember. It'd be thousands or millions on there. But it's like, so yeah, basically what happens is like customers land go onto a website or onto our app. And there's loads of products on there. So the aim is like, how do we help these customers navigate this site and find what they're looking for? So when you land on the site, you land on what we call the home page, is the main page, and there's different ways you can start navigating. So as you may see from other sites as well, you've got the drop down filters at the top of the page where then you can start selecting categories or designers, for example, and start searching that way. There's also like a search bar in the top right hand corner. Then you could type in Gucci shoes or something, and then then a listings page will come up. So that's what will generally happen, and you end up in the listings page. So that's like a list of all different products. You scroll through, and then the customers will likely then start clicking on the products themselves. So that then lands on what we call the product page. And that will give you more photos about the product, have more descriptions about that product. And then if you scroll down, generally there's even more stuff to help a customer find and buy things. So that'll be like shop the look. So, you buy this, you can also buy these as well to go with it. Or there's other recommendations, and that'll be like customers who looked at this, could also looked at this or similar products too. So different ways of that. So then once the customer has decided, okay, I want to buy this thing, they can do two things. They can either add it to their wish list and then come back to it later, or they add it to their cart and then go and check out. So that's generally the customer journey on the site or on the app in that way.
Okay, so I think lots of people would recognise a recommender. I was just thinking there, if you were living under a rock, you maybe didn't use Amazon in the last 20 years, but I think lots of people would recognise the segments at the bottom underneath products. It's kind of like customers who bought this, and if you read the business textbook, it will say, I'm not sure how true it is, but Amazon attribute about 30% of revenue to these placements and revenue. So let's go into the placements real quick. So I understand the journey and these million products. Where would the recommendation algorithm work? Like, what would be some of the placement areas on the site? I get the kind of is the ranking of initial products. Is that part of it?
Well, you can have there's different places basically. When I mentioned you land on the home page, there could already be recommendations on that page, because if we recognize you as a customer, or if you're logged into the site, we already know who you are and what your search behavior looks like and what things you generally search for, so that we can already put things there. Otherwise, then mostly on the product page, so the page about the product and description, you'll scroll down and then you'll start seeing recommendations on the bottom, and you can like go through the carousel in that sense, and to see what else you could go onto, and then you click on that, you go into other pages with more with their own recommendations on that page.
So we've got the carousel in. So Michelle, what is it? What are the driving forces behind this carousel? So what is a recommender algorithm? What kind of is it a methodology? Is it an algorithm of some kind? And what inputs? Like, what kind of data is flowing into this?
Hmm. So basically, with the it's sort of like a data filtering tool, so that we can find products similar, and it uses machine learning algorithms to recommend the most relevant item based on what the customer is looking at. So there's different versions of it. So you could base it on the customer themselves. So we talked about customers who viewed this product also viewed this other product. There's the other one, which is like based on the product side. So similar items include this. Or quite a lot of the times now, people try to take or companies try to make their use, take the benefits of both and make a combination of the two. So that's generally how the types of algorithms that they are. And the information it generally takes is everything that you do on the site, because it's tailored to our customer base. So when you're on the site or on the app, all the actions that you're doing, so you may be scrolling through the pages, you may be then clicking on certain page to page to page, then you bounce off certain pages, you leave the page very quickly, or you're spending a lot of time on that page. Or if you add something to wish list, or if you add something to cart, and especially if you then leave the cart and you abandon the cart, that's another action that we take into account. So there's certain actions on the site that we'll take into account in the algorithm and have different, let's say, priority in that way.
So I thought of a question you might not have expected, Michelle, in our preparation for this.
Thank you.
I've started myself off now talking about Amazon. So, well, not just Amazon, digital advertising generally. I'll pick one from Phil Law, who was with me. So he did an interview with me, and he told me about the lawnmower that he had bought via digital advertising. He bought it 2 years ago and was still receiving ads. So, one of the last mile of the purchase in the digital landscape, no one really knows if you did buy it. Maybe you went to the shop and bought it and you were just researching. So the kind of data point that says he bought that lawnmower was not there. My thinking here then is, do you do anything with the recommender that says, say I buy, I'm making this up, I buy a handbag, Michelle, for you mentioned Gucci. I know it's a loyalty brand, Farfetch. So if I buy a £3,000 handbag, does the purchase sort of downweight the next recommendations anyway, or is there any like exclude criteria that you have to manage at the same time? Because it can't just be hey, pump this guy full of handbags, because I was about to say there's a limit to how many I can buy, but maybe for some women not. But like, is there any sort of rules that you have to apply that sort of carefully manage certain items that you just can't have 10 of them or something like this?
There are in Farfetch, there's things like what we call, say, brand restrictions. So they're from different brands. They do restrict in terms of certain things. So we put those rules in place. But in terms of, and then what you're saying in your example, I would say I'm not sure if they do in terms of like down weighting on the certain item. I mean, if you certainly bought it, then that should be happening. If they don't have that information point, I would say that the algorithm will be taking the most recent data. So hopefully you won't have the item they bought 10 years ago shouldn't be showing now. If you're a sort of regular customer, it should be your most recent data has been taken into account in the algorithm.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So, look, I know we didn't prepare this discussion point, Michelle. So, what I heard then is the recommender is algorithmic and it's kind of based data driven. But I was fishing around for like, well, what rules do you have that control things? Guardrails? Like, do you have guardrails? So, my example might not be very good, but you're saying Farfetch would have limitations at a brand level to say, hey, it becomes, I don't know how you thought of it, and anti-competitive if you just have Gucci being the number one thing for every single consumer. Somehow
Yes.
something out of control for your other partners or your other boutiques or your other stores. So it's kind of a mix there of algorithmic plus some mission control rules that
Yeah.
keep things in order.
Yeah, I mean, we have to maintain our relationships with the brands, so then we have to take into account what they say. And there's also certain things in Farfetch which we try not to sell. So, for example, we'd exclude fur, for example, things like this, which is also in the exclude that's also monitored in that way.
And how often is something like, another question you're not expecting, how often is something like this updated, Michelle? Like, is it more like a continuous, study, or is it more like once a year you kind of do something?
Not continuous, because the thing about in luxury and with some shoppers is recency and a sort of up-to-date fashion in that sense. So at least there's going to be certain items which are very hot at this point in time, so it has to be done, I would say, at least on a weekly basis.
Okay. And what kind of group, this is an insight then, so if for anyone watching this thinking, I've got the problem of a large marketplace or thousands or millions of items. A recommender plus guardrails is like a model that they could use. What kind of team at Farfetch? Well, I know it was your area, marketing analytics and these things. What kind of team does it take to manage all this, like in terms of numbers of FTE, and what types of skills would be in that team?
Oh, these teams grow a lot. So there's like recommendations is one big thing in sort of e-commerce companies. So I mean, depends on if you put them all together or not, but you're going to have, size is hard for me to say because is quite, I would say, a large enough team that you're not going to have part of an analyst in it. You should have an analyst in there looking at how to improve the algorithm. Is it working? What's the performance of it? A/B testing, that sort of stuff. In some, quite a lot of projects, an analyst will work on multiple things. So that's why I say it's sort of anchor point in my mind. So what you end up with is, I would say, end-to-end data disciplines. You need somebody who's going to be collecting the data, storing that data, manipulating that data, so the data engineering skills, through to your BI skill sets to be able to report on that, and your analytics side in terms of some of the experimentation side, your data scientists or ML side of things, which is building that model. And then you have a PM who will be managing the whole thing. So like a product manager, basically, in terms of what's this now, what's the future of it, and the vision and communication of that across the entire business. Then you've got the tech side of things, because you're going to be putting this on the site. So there's the sort of more software engineering skill sets there as well. And for this sort of project, you may have a project manager as well, in terms of making sure that, we're keeping to timings and how this works in combination with other features that are happening across the site as well. So I'd say those are the sort of key sort of roles that are needed in the team.
So, Michelle, I feel like you just described at least 10 people, probably. And so the way I was going with it is, someone facing this problem of, I've got these, infinite number of items. I've got customer data, and I could think about doing something like this. If there's a business person with a PowerPoint deck saying, "Hey, we should have a recommender," what they're really walking into is something that needs continuous optimization, probably a team of 10 collaborating on it non-stop. And that doesn't even include the initial building of the methodology and the pipeline and all these things. So it sounds quite involved, which is where I was going. Is it something that two people did just by sitting next to each other? But it sounds far more involved than that, and more of a large undertaking.
This is, I mean, for Farfetch, it's quite big, but I mean, if you're going to be starting on this, I would, you can start small. And I think one of the things to do that, is like, and I was thinking about it in terms of product thinking, do start small and test and test and learn, iteratively improve, and making because that will help you kind of tailor the model to your customer base. So if I was thinking about like how I would start that off, I'd probably hire assuming you've got the data in place, by the way, so you're collecting all your on-site data and stuff, I would say that you hire like an analyst with sort of advanced analytics or towards data science skill set, because you can probably build something quite quickly out of it and build out that proof of concept, which drives value, which then allows you to get more investment into this product.
Michelle, last question before we drop off this one. So in the Farfetched context, you don't have to talk revenues or any sensitive numbers, but some of these content areas, like on the homepage that had recommenders or the carousel, do you recall if you just took 1,000 users, what proportion of them would interact with one of these content areas that's being driven from the recommender?
I can't say the exact proportion, but I would say quite a high percentage. I think people are used to these tools now from other websites too. So it's almost an expectation, and it helps them to get through the site in that sense. And I think also people do like the fact that, oh, I'm looking at like this black jacket, and I can scroll through and look at other black jackets, and then, okay, this is the one that I want. So I think it's a bit more, provides them with a bit more completeness in their search.
Michelle, good news, we're finished. Bad news, we're about to hit time. So, Michelle, thanks for taking us through that. Thank you for your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Emma's Like Teen Spirit. We'll see you again soon.